Hello guys, I hope you're doing well. Let's talk about the Asche conformity experiments that were conducted in the 50s in Pennsylvania because they're very interesting, not least with current affairs. And so it would simply involve a group of people, so say 10, 9 of whom were actually cohorts and accomplices to the experiment, and there's only really one person who's being psychologically experimented on. And that person would go last in a series of questions. And the questions would always be related to very easy questions of how long is this line? Is it A, B, or C? And they'd show you like medium, short, and long lines. And of course, the line they're asking is going to be one of those three. And so, like, if someone was to ask you that question, you'd be able to very easily just identify, well, okay, it's a medium length line, it's B. But what if those 9 people before you all agree to give a wrong answer? And you are the last person, or the second from last person, to actually provide an answer for this. Are you going to buck the trend and stand out and be that person who says, no, they're all wrong? Like, what are they doing? Like, this is right. Or are you going to just go along and be a sheep and say, oh, you don't want to stand out. You don't want to be that person, right, who's going to get ostracized from the group. You don't want to look silly or stupid. So turns out 35% of people are perfectly willing to ignore reality and just give a wrong answer to fit in. And so where have we seen that? Not just now, which will, in society, but in contemporary world, but like going back, things like Giordano Bruno, who had his tongue ripped out of the stake simply for saying that these distant stars are other suns, and what happened to Galileo, what happened to people in the Renaissance, what happened to, people who just said that the world is round when they thought it was flat. These fringe thinkers, it's a very difficult thing. It's very excruciating to sometimes state the obvious and be that person, the black sheep, so to speak. And so today, what would happen if I went out, for example, outside and just started shouting that there's a monster coming, right? And, like you might see these people like proselytizing on the streets, like Christianity or whatever. People just walk past, oh, it's a nut job, because it's just one person. But if I went out and said, and I think you know what I'm referring to, I'll put something on the screen because I can't say the words, I'll just get deleted again. If I just went out onto the street corner and went, guys, there's a monster coming, you need to stay at home and save lives, everyone would think that I'm absolutely bonkers and they wouldn't listen to me. But if I put a lab coat on and had a little frame around me that was showing that BBC is like the BBC News, and I've got all the weight of authority and all the media behind me, seemingly everyone, without even questioning what I'm saying or even what a monster is or whether they even exist, is just going to absolutely conform and do whatever they're told. I mean, that isn't even speculation, that's just taking place, like, by and large throughout the whole world. I mean, it's fascinating. And that monsters have never been proven to actually exist is just irrelevant because they've been told something and they don't want to be now the person who stands out, the person who can just critically address and question the misinformation actually that they've been spoon-fed by the state repetitively, not just throughout the last couple of years, but the way back. The whole monster paradigm is absolutely a misconception at best, and outright really is total mendacity. So, like, this is an interesting and pressing experiment for people to look at because it really sort of like addresses this psychological quandary that we have, that we don't want to be that person who stand, but we have to be that person because it's the only way we can actually get through to the truth. Because otherwise, the human herd, the herd mindset, right? If you're interested in the Heideggerian philosophy, das Man, right? The collectivized beings, of course, that's the agenda. That's what this government has been leaning towards the whole time, is to collectivize the masses. This state school, we're all these individualized, unique entities, but we all go through this conveyor belt of education, which has unfortunately robbed us of our independent, critical thinking. And people will think, oh no, I went through this, I went to university, and it's absolutely, like, in some cases, they're going to be people who keep hold of their independent ways of thinking. But unfortunately, until you realize that monsters don't exist, then that is still a dormant faculty within you, like this ability to independently and unbiasedly look at information. People haven't even bothered to question it, simply because, like, as Albert Einstein said, unthinking respect and authority is the greatest enemy of truth. So these experiments are very interesting, and do check them out in more detail if you're interested. And I just thought it was something worth sharing because it just reminds me of everything that we've just gone through. Now, if you're just sort of stumbled across this video and you are totally oblivious to what's just been taking place and is indeed taking place right now, which is ultimately global genocide, do check out a document on, it's called The Misconception Called Monster, right? And it's by Dr. Stefan Lanka. Do check that out. Or you can read a leaflet on newearth.land /documents called CV19, Facts Not Fear, okay? It goes through it more holistically because that's what needs to be taking place, right? We need to understand the true science of monsters. We need to understand the political corruption, which is infinite. And we also need to understand the science, or the lack of science behind things being injected into your arm, right? Because if there are no monsters, then what are you being protected against, right? It's all a forced logic, right? They've been doing this for decades, long before we were born. It's been going on and on and on and on and on. So I just thought I'd make this video because this experiment reminded me of a lot of that stuff. I mean, we haven't been talking about that recently because I'll just get deleted. But, do go along and check the Odyssey link as well, because I'll have some uncensored material on there. I've not been talking about this recently because it's what lost me my platform in the first place. So hopefully, though, I can skirt around this algorithm and get the truth across to you, because that's what I'm most interested in doing, because millions of people around the world are dying directly because of the response to this alleged fake monster, which doesn't actually exist, right? Monsters are simply excretions of toxic cells, is what Rudolf Steiner told us years and years and years ago. It's absolutely true. Check out Dr. Andrew Kaufman and the Science of Exosomes, right? The true biology will prevail. Check out a book called Mania, How the Medical Industry Continually Invents Epidemics Making billion-dollar profits at our expense. And also check out a book called What Makes Us Sick. What really, everything you know about disease is wrong. Is phenomenal. Check out the terrain theory, which is correct, and the germ theory is actually incorrect. As B.J. Palmer said, if the germ theory were correct, there'd be no one alive to believe it. Okay, so we can talk about that in more detail. But I've just got to think about how I can sort of get around to doing that without getting deleted. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one.